Brave little girl delivers X-ray to police. Incredible German Shepherd reveals stunning family secrets. Ellie stood on the cracked sidewalk, hands trembling as she clutched the cold, dusty X-ray. Panic surged through her veins, each frantic heartbeat echoing in her ears. Max, her loyal German Shepherd, looked up at her, his brown eyes filled with loyalty and an unspoken encouragement. She had discovered the X-ray while rummaging through her elderly neighbor's attic, an unremarkable adventure that had turned into an overwhelming moral dilemma. Here it was evidence linked to the recent robbery that had rattled their small town, and yet all she could feel was the tightening knot in her stomach, squeezing her resolve. She hesitated, caught in a conflict that felt insurmountable. If she took the X-ray to the police, they might finally take her seriously, yet, the reality of her age and the town's biases haunted her. Would they dismiss her as just a shy little girl with nothing to contribute? Would they scorn her feeble attempt to help? Ellie swallowed hard, her throat dry as the fear seeped into her every thought. She wanted to be brave, to be the hero her grandmother had once been during the war, but would she ever measure up against the adults who overlooked her? As she approached the police station, determination clashed with her insecurities. The old brick building loomed before her, and she paused, heart racing. What was she thinking? The pressure surged, escalating with every step. Irrational thoughts flooded her mind. Maybe someone else would come forward. Maybe it was foolish to think she could make a difference, but deep down, a flicker of urgency ignited within her. If this evidence could lead to justice, how could she remain silent? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Inside the station, tension crackled in the air. The officers were conversing in low, dismissive tones, glancing at Ellie as though she were a mere spectator in their world. The familiar sting of invisibility washed over her. Gathering her thoughts, she stepped forward, her voice barely a whisper. "Excuse me. I found something." Their skepticism was palpable, eyes narrowing as she fumbled with the X-ray. What if this was all in vain? She felt small under their scrutiny, each judgment laden like heavy bricks on her shoulders. Then, as Ellie spoke about her discovery, she saw something shift in their expressions, a flicker of surprise at her conviction. But doubts clawed at her resolve. Was it just her imagination, or were they still holding back skepticism? Beneath the bright lights and stern uniforms, she saw more than just officers. She saw the humanity they sometimes overlooked. Could she be more than the shy girl in the background? As the moment hung in the air, she longed to break free from the fear that constricted her. With each breath, Ellie felt the weight of her responsibilities bearing down on her. She was at a precipice, caught between fear and the urgent desire to honor her grandmother's legacy. Would she step into this role of responsibility or retreat into the shadows once again? As the officers leaned in to examine the X-ray, she felt another twist in her stomach, a realization that whatever the outcome, she was on the brink of something significant. But what lay ahead loomed uncertain, like a fog she couldn't yet penetrate, leaving her heart racing and her thoughts tangled, ready to spiral into the unknown. The officers exchanged glances, solidifying the moment with an air of anticipation. Ellie's heart pattered like a frenzied drummer as she mustered the courage to look directly at them. Would they see her? Would they understand the weight of what she was presenting? This was not just an X-ray, it was a stitch in the fabric of her courage, a strand of hope for her town. "Let us see it," one of them finally said, stepping forward. His voice was firm, but not unkind. Ellie handed over the X-ray with trembling fingers, her pulse thrumming in her ears. She watched as their expressions shifted from casual indifference to focused interest. The X-ray revealed more than just bones, it was a piece of the puzzle that had eluded them for weeks. The implications of what she had uncovered began to unfold before her eyes, igniting a flicker of belief in her heart. As they studied the image, Ellie's fear began to morph into something else, a burgeoning sense of possibility. She stepped a bit closer, her instincts urging her to add context. I found it in Mrs. Kelly's attic. It was hidden in a box. She used to talk about her husband. He passed away years ago, and the words poured out, the connection deepening as she shared snippets about the elderly couple's life and how their past could tie to the present robbery and potentially to the culprits. The officers began jotting down notes, their skepticism melting away. Ellie noticed how their shoulders relaxed slightly, how they leaned in toward her words rather than away. For the first time in what felt like ages, she felt seen, like a participant in a narrative rather than a backdrop. But as excitement surged, a prickling anxiety planted seeds of doubt in her mind. What if she was mistaken? What if she made it all up in her head to justify acting brave? Yet she silenced those thoughts, refusing to give in to the whispers of uncertainty. She had come too far to retreat now. The intensity of her involvement ignited a sense of responsibility she hadn't anticipated. This was her chance to step from the shadows, to let the world see her courage, to follow in her grandmother's footsteps. The officers exchanged more whispers, occasionally glancing back at her, their initial disbelief replaced by respect. She began to feel as if the future held promise instead of fear, a strange irony that a child's discovery could potentially lead to considerable change. Yet, something nagged at her. The thought of Mrs. Kelly stirred in her mind, a lingering worry about the older woman's well-being and how the past she embodied might be entangled in the crime. Had Mrs. Kelly been more than just a neighbor? And if so, was it fair to drag her name into this, to ask pointed questions when vulnerability encircled her? As she pieced together the puzzle, decisions weighed heavily on her. She was no longer just Ellie the shy girl, she was a pivotal character in a community story. One that could lead to justice or unleash discomforting truths. The confidence swell began to ebb, replaced by a clarity of purpose. She was ready to face whatever consequences lay ahead. Before she could voice her thoughts, the door opened, revealing a figure shrouded in a dark coat. Mrs. Kelly. Ellie? She whispered, surprise etched on her frail features. What are you doing here? Every nerve in Ellie's body ignited with apprehension. Had Mrs. Kelly stumbled upon her truth? Would she recoil in anger or gratitude? Fingers intertwined, Ellie's resolve solidified. The time had come to face the unexpected and reveal the hidden courage within. But what would this confrontation reveal not only to Mrs. Kelly but to Ellie herself? Would this unravel the mysteries of her neighbor's past or unleash a haunting reality she wasn't prepared to handle? Ellie's heart raced as she locked eyes with Mrs. Kelly, her mind racing faster than her pulse. The silence hung heavy between them, a fragile thread that could snap with the wrong word. She felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders. This was more than just a confrontation. It was about facing the consequences of her discoveries and the choices she had made, crossing into a territory where courage was demanded. I found something, Ellie stammered, her voice trembling yet resolute. It's in the X-ray. It's about your husband. I thought it could help. Mrs. Kelly's brows knitted together, and Ellie could see the flicker of confusion in her eyes. Despite the heavy air of uncertainty, Ellie pressed on, recounting the details of her discovery, her throat tightening as she recalled the past she'd unearthed. I remember you talking about him, and how much you loved him. I didn't mean to pry, but it seemed important. As the words spilled forth, Ellie noticed a change in Mrs. Kelly's demeanor. The initial bewilderment morphed into something softer yet tinged with caution. Anxiety flickered in her gaze, a reflection of the turmoil Ellie felt within. What does it have to do with the robbery? Mrs. Kelly finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Each word landed with the weight of a stone, a question layered with doubt and fear. Ellie hesitated, grappling with the truth that felt too big to contain. I think your past, the love and loss you've experienced, it might be connected to what's happening now in our neighborhood. I didn't want to hide what I found." Her words hovered in the air, and though the officers in the room kept their distance, their ears were tuned to the fragile exchange happening before them. This wasn't just about the X-ray anymore, it was about the stories interwoven in lives, a lesson so often overlooked. Mrs. Kelly's eyes glistened with unshed tears, the vulnerability evident as she took a trembling step toward Ellie. "You've always been a good girl, Ellie. Nobody has ever cared the way you seem to care. But sometimes, knowing the truth doesn't change what has happened." "I want to help," Ellie replied, her determination hardening as she faced the older woman. "I want to make it better. Please let me try." In the midst of this moment, the connection blossoming between past and present, Ellie sensed a shift within herself. It dawned on her that courage wasn't about defying fear, it was about acknowledging it, about embracing the uncertainty while daring to forge ahead despite the unknown. She was no longer merely the shy girl who lingered on the sidelines. This incident had thrust her into the spotlight, revealing a capacity for resilience she had scarcely recognized. Mrs. Kelly regarded her with a mixture of pride and trepidation. "I'm scared of what you might uncover, Ellie. Some secrets are better left buried. But how can we know? Isn't it our duty to unearth the truth?" Ellie pressed, feeling the surge of conviction flow through her, as if the very question was the cornerstone of her journey forward. Silence enveloped them again as Mrs. Kelly paled at the prospect. The officers observed, sensing the gentle tide of conflict rising between Ellie's bold resolve and Mrs. Kelly's fragile trepidation. Ellie wasn't simply seeking answers for herself, she was holding on to the possibility of healing for their community, but also for Mrs. Kelly's own buried past. In that crucial moment, the narrative of their lives converged in ways neither could fully comprehend. Ellie knew she had a choice: to press forward, unravel the threads that bound them, or to pull back and shield them both from the implications of what they might find. As she made her decision, another figure appeared behind Mrs. Kelly, aligning itself in the doorway with an unnerving presence. Ellie's stomach dropped as the recognition set in the face of an old threat, familiar yet unsettling. "Looks like you've stirred the pot, Ellie," the newcomer sneered. Her heart sank, this was only the beginning. What had she truly set in motion? The nausea tightened in Ellie's gut as she wrestled with the figure's presence loitering in the doorway, a ghost from her past that had haunted her in more ways than one. Jake, the notorious troublemaker from her high school days, had a knack for showing up when she least expected it. Now, with this newfound conflict infecting the air like a poison, Ellie felt a wave of panic rise, threatening to pull her under. "Why don't you just leave, Jake?" she managed to say, her voice steadier than she felt. With a flicker of determination, she tightened her grip on the X-ray envelope, now a symbol of her resolve. Jake sauntered in, a sly smirk dancing on his lips. "I think you're in way over your head, Ellie. You think you can play detective? You're nothing but a little girl lost in the big world." The taunts were sharp, barbed with the intent to wound. Every insult was a reminder of her insecurities, threading into her mind like a dark tapestry. However, beneath the sting, something else flickered in her chest, a glimmer of rage coupled with newfound courage. "I'm not lost," she replied, a fierce edge creeping into her voice. "I'm just getting started." Mrs. Kelly's eyes darted between them, trying to mask her brewing anxiety for Ellie's courage amidst rising tension. "Jake, you don't belong here. You need to go," she said, an authority blossoming in her tone, surprising them all. Ellie could sense her heartbeat echoing in her ears as she weighed her options. Should she confront Jake outright or keep him at bay while she fished for more truths? The stakes felt immense, any misstep could unleash chaos, not just for herself but also for Mrs. Kelly. Jake stepped closer, invading her personal space with a swagger that felt both threatening and oddly familiar. "You really think you have the guts to dig through all that mess? I've seen what people do to protect their secrets. You have no idea what you're dealing with." His eyes narrowed, cunning and exacting. She locked eyes with him, a silent defiance solidifying her stance. "What do you know about any of this?" You're just trying to scare me. Maybe you're right. A touch of incredulity colored his voice. But you need to think about what you might uncover. You could end up regretting it. As he spoke, Ellie noticed the way Mrs. Kelly shuddered, her emotional armor weakening in the face of Jake's blackmail. The realization struck Ellie hard. Doubt and fear were tools of oppression, and she had a choice to either yield to them or dismantle their grip. In that moment, a revelation struck her. The X-ray in her hand was more than just a diagnostic image. It represented the power of truth, the need for understanding, and the path toward healing. She had the agency to reveal what lay beneath layers of guarded silence. Fueled by resolve, Ellie took a bold step forward, breaking free from the confines of her hesitation. You think you can intimidate me? I'm not going to back down, Jake. Not now, not ever. The words surged with a fierce clarity that dispelled the shadows of her self-doubt. It was time to assert her right to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Careful, Ellie, he warned, his voice low, an icy undertone lacing his words. You don't know who you're messing with. Some doors are better left closed. As Jake backed away, leaving a trail of unease, Ellie felt a sense of liberation. The confrontation served as a catalyst rather than a blockade. It crystallized her purpose. This journey was about unveiling stories buried in the dirt, and she was ready to dig deeper than ever. With Mrs. Kelly's steely gaze upon her and a burning conviction ignited in her chest, Ellie prepared herself for the next chapter. A chapter where she wouldn't merely act, but lead in pursuit of answers, but also in search of her emerging self. As she turned back toward Mrs. Kelly, the weight of their shared moment hung heavy again, thick with promise and uncertainty. What's next? Ellie asked, her voice steady, as she sensed the storytelling might just be beginning. But the smirk on Jake's face lingered in her mind, a lingering threat that refused to fade. What had she truly awakened, and was she equipped to confront the ghosts of their past? Ellie took a step back, her mind abuzz, wrestling with the implications of Jake's threats and the weight of the X-ray in her hand. The truth felt slippery, elusive, and yet she knew she had to hold on to it tightly. With Mrs. Kelly's unwavering gaze fortified by her own determination, Ellie felt embers of purpose warming her insides. We need to figure out what's going on, she declared, her voice firm, reaffirming her newfound resolve. Mrs. Kelly nodded, the tension easing as she rapidly dispensed with any remnants of doubt. You're right, she agreed. But where do we start? These secrets are deeper than I ever imagined. Ellie's heart raced, the thrill of the challenge invigorating her. She remembered the names woven into the tapestry of her past. Although she had left high school behind, its shadows still flickered in her mind, containing secrets thirsting for acknowledgement. We could call some of our old friends, Ellie suggested tentatively. See what they might know? Good idea, they're all tangled in this somewhere. I'll get the contacts, Mrs. Kelly replied, her eagerness to help evident in the steely resolve of her posture. Together, they navigated through old contacts, sifting through ties long since frayed by time. With each name they jotted down, Ellie felt her past merging with her present, the internal wrestle amplifying each time she veered toward a familiar name. Moments passed, every ringing phone call narrated untold stories, corroborating suspicions and murmuring secrets cloaked in layers of ambiguity. With each connection renewed, Ellie stood taller, unfolding the outlines of her courage while shoving aside the fears that threatened to nip at her heels. But then, there it was, a jarring revelation. One of her friend's former partners, Ruth, had mentioned confiding with Jake about hidden records he was protecting. Roughed out in hushed tones. The very name sent chills cascading through Ellie's spine. Who was Ruth, and why had she allied with someone as dangerous as Jake? Ruth knows something, Ellie felt compelled to state, piecing together that this might be the beacon they required to shine light on what had transpired. We need to talk to her. Mrs. Kelly's brow furrowed, her anxiety resurfacing. Just be careful. I don't want you getting mixed up with people who can put you in harm's way. It was in the comforting warmth of supportive words that Ellie comprehended the duality of her mission. She wasn't just seeking truth for the sake of curiosity, she was carving her own path. "I won tea," she promised, determined to weave together strength with caution. "I know what I'm risking." Before long, after an exchange of hesitant texts, Ellie secured a time to meet Ruth. As she prepared herself, she could not allow fear to invade her spirit. The past had shaped her, yes, but it was the future she wanted to mold now. That night, as she lay in bed, the X-ray cradled in the quiet confines of her backpack, Ellie devised an internal strategy: listen first, talk later. She would approach this like the budding detective she yearned to be. And yet, the echo of Jake's smirk lingered persistently in the back of her mind. Was he watching? Would he intercept her pursuit of truth with greater malice? Doubt stirred within her, urging her to question whether she had truly stepped into the shoes of a leader or merely filled them temporarily. The following day arrived heavy with anticipation, a palpable energy coursing through her veins. She smoothed her scarf around her neck, an intentional armor against the chill outside, and stepped out to meet Ruth, determined to pry open the umbra of the past, no matter what awaited. As she approached their meeting place, a cafe, vibrant with life and laughter, Ellie caught sight of an unfamiliar figure lingering at the entrance. The unease twisted in her stomach as she recognized the outline of Jake, lurking in a shadow like a vulture waiting for its prey. What did he want? As fear gripped her, Ellie clenched her fists, a single thought circling in her mind: the time had come to face whatever ghosts still haunted the narrative she was determined to unfold. Ellie paused, the vibrant energy of the cafe suddenly muted by the heavy presence of Jake. His figure loomed like a specter over her confident strides, casting doubt on the resolve she had carefully cultivated. What was his game? Did he believe she would cower from confronting him? Gathering her breath, she straightened her posture and instinctively adjusted her scarf one more time. She would not appear vulnerable in front of him. Jake's eyes caught hers, a predatory glint sparking the air between them. "Didn't he think I'd find you here?" he said, his voice smooth but laced with an undercurrent of menace. "What are you after, Ellie?" "I'm here to meet Ruth," she stated, her voice steadier than she felt. The truth was, she had a job to do, and she couldn't let him derail her mission. Survival instinct kicked in as she braced for his response. "Ruth?" He laughed, the sound cold and humorless, heightening her tension. "You think talking to her will help? She's mixed up in things you don't want to tangle with." A thrill of defiance surged through her. "I'm not afraid of her, or you," Ellie shot back, tapping into the reservoir of determination that had kindled since her conversation with Mrs. Kelly. Each word unearthed remnants of unapologetic confidence she had buried beneath layers of uncertainty for far too long. Jake took a step forward, verifying to Ellie that conflict would be unavoidable. "You should be afraid. The past doesn't just fade." Before she could formulate a response, he turned abruptly, disappearing into the throng of the city. The encounter had left a crack in her confidence, but doubt morphed into a spark for growth. As she entered the cafe, the familiar aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the scent of baked goods, a stark contrast to the unsettling conversation she had just endured. Her eyes scanned the room until they settled on Ruth, a woman who appeared 10 years more worn than Ellie remembered, sitting in a corner booth with a guarded expression. "Ellie," Ruth acknowledged, her tone wary as she motioned to the seat across from her. "I wasn't sure you'd show up." Encouraged and disarmed by that simple gesture, Ellie slid into the chair, her determination hardening. "I need to know what you discussed with Jake, about those hidden records." Ruth hesitated, studying Ellie's face, perhaps searching for traces of the girl she once knew. "It's complicated, Ellie," she finally said, her voice low. "Jake's not what he seems." "Tell me," Ellie pressed, the urgency of her quest blackening the doubts still flickering at the edges of her mind. Her internal dialogue buzzed. She had a fleeting moment to extract the truth and secure the future she was learning to envision. Ruth sighed, leaning forward as if the weight of what she was harboring became too much to conceal. I was looking for something about the past that he was hiding. But it's dangerous. You shouldn't get involved. The warning wrapped around Ellie, constricting her. Here lay a fork in her path. She could retreat, safeguarding her safety, or plunge deeper into the quest for answers. Each option echoed a piece of herself she had yet to fully uncover. I am already involved, Ruth. I won't back down, Ellie asserted, her voice a blade cutting through shifting shadows. Discovering her agency felt nothing short of exhilarating. Ruth studied her for a long moment, recognition blooming in her eyes. Then you need to be prepared for a fight. The web is tangled and Jake, he. Before she could finish, the door swung open, drawing Ellie's gaze. A tall figure entered, and her heart raced as she recognized another shadow from her past, an ally turned potential adversary. The cafe seemed to shrink around her, the stakes rising higher. Ellie? The newcomer called out, their familiarity blending seamlessly with the complexities that had spiraled out of control. What is going on? There it was, the moment spiraling out of her control. Suddenly, her mission felt more vulnerable than ever. What lay ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, yet Ellie understood she had to navigate the storm. With resolve. As her mind raced to find a feasible response, one thing was clear, she couldn't afford to be the timid girl anymore. Something inside her had shifted irrevocably, she had stepped into a challenge that might very well define her. Yet, Jake's presence loomed ominously in her thoughts. What other tactics would he deploy to undermine her? What secrets still lingered unexposed in her past that he could use as leverage? Ellie's pulse quickened not just from fear, but from the electric thrill of discovery. The next step would be to confront whatever lay hidden in both her history and the manipulated truths surrounding her now. Let us talk, she said, addressing Ruth as her ally approached the table. I need to know everything. As Ellie faced Ruth and the newcomer, the cafe buzzed like a hive, a flurry of voices blending into a singular hum that felt like a distant echo of her previous life. The moment crystallized in her mind, a crucial intersection where past fears collided with her newfound resolve. The uncertainty was tangible, yet the confrontation she craved hung in the air, thick with unvoiced threats and unguarded truths. Ellie, right? The newcomer smiled, but the warmth in their eyes was tempered by concern. I didn't expect to find you here with Ruth. Just catching up on old times, Ellie deflected, her tone measured. Internally, she acknowledged the surge of force this encounter harnessed within her. She sensed the need to assert herself not just with Ruth, but with anyone who dared question her determination. Yeah, well, the past has a way of creeping in, the newcomer replied, casually leaning against the back of the booth. I hope you're prepared for the fallout. Ellie felt the weight of their words, a reminder that her quest for clarity could lead to turmoil she had not anticipated. Yet she stood at the threshold of an opportunity, one where ignorance was no longer an option. Her vision sharpened as she took a deep breath, leaning forward slightly. If you know something about Jake or what he's involved in, I need you to tell me. Jake has a lot of people watching him, Ellie, Ruth interjected, her expression conflicted, torn between warning and encouragement. He's not going to let anyone just waltz in and unravel his plans. You need to think this through. I have thought it through, Ellie replied, the edge of her voice tempered with conviction. I want to expose the truth, whatever it may be. Hiding will not protect me from Jake or the darkness of my past. The tension escalated, Ruth's gaze darted between Ellie and the newcomer, who looked intrigued yet hesitant to reveal too much. What exactly are you trying to uncover? The newcomer asked, their tone increasingly cautious. You have to understand, it's not just your past that's at stake. There are consequences. Ellie felt a swell of emotion rise within her, a mixture of frustration and an undeniable drive to assert her agency. I am tired of living in fear. The more I uncover, the stronger I feel. I refuse to give in to Jake's manipulations. I need to confront him, whatever it takes. A silence enveloped the table, thickening the air around them. The gravity of her statement hung, its crystalline clarity shocking even Ellie into a self-awareness she had long evaded. It was a revelation of sorts, a shift in how she perceived her own capabilities. "All right," the newcomer conceded after a moment, folding their arms across their chest in a gesture of reluctant acceptance. "If you're in this deep, then it might be time for you to know more." They leaned closer, lowering their voice. "I saw Jake speaking with someone last week. They exchanged something. It looked serious." Ellie's pulse quickened again, excitement coursing through her in waves. "What do you mean? What was it?" "I don't know," the newcomer admitted, their brow furrowed in contemplation. "But whatever it was, it seemed important enough for them to meet in secret. There are layers to Jake you haven't even begun to explore." Ruth, who had been waiting in anticipation, seized the moment. "If you're going to confront him, then we need a plan. Rushing in without understanding who you're dealing with could be catastrophic." Ellie nodded, determination solidifying her resolve. Here was her chance to redefine not only her past but how she would ultimately face her future. "Then let us make a plan," Ellie said, her eyes gleaming with newfound purpose. "Let us expose whatever he is hiding." Yet, as she declared her intent, doubt flickered like an unwelcome shadow in her mind. She had taken the first steps toward reclaiming her story, but she also understood the intricacies of betrayal and hidden motivations still waited in the wings, ready to ensnare her. In that moment of clarity, a question lingered above the table: would she be ready for whatever truths would unravel once she pulled the threads? With resolve, she tightened her grip on the table's edge, aware that the real battle was just beginning. All the pieces may not have been in place, but she would not shy away from the fight. "Tell me everything you know," she commanded, her voice strong and unwavering. "Let us get to work before he knows we're coming." Yet, as she felt the electrifying energy shift around her, a nagging thought settled in her core: did she truly have the strength to dismantle the facade Jake had so carefully constructed? That question echoed as they leaned into strategy, the stakes rising even further. With each moment, Ellie felt the tightening grip of uncertainty battling against her resolve, urging her deeper into the abyss of her past, a confrontation she now embraced without reservation. The clarity that filled Ellie moments ago began to fracture as they delved deeper into their plan. A distinct weight pressed upon her chest, forcing her to confront the growing doubt nestled beneath her armor of resolve. She had initiated this journey, but the path ahead was littered with risks that could easily derail her newfound courage. Ruth's eyes met hers, reflecting fierce concern. "Finding out the truth is only half the battle," she reminded Ellie, her voice steady yet tinged with apprehension. "You need to anticipate Jake's moves. He is clever, and he won't hesitate to destroy anyone who threatens him." Ellie nodded, though internally she wrestled with Ruth's words. Could she really outmaneuver someone like Jake? Her inexperience clawed at her confidence, a reminder of how skillfully he had tangled her life in the past. But every moment spent in her old apprehension only made her resolve strong. She had to move forward, not backward. "Let us break this down," she suggested, channeling the unease into strategy. "We need to gather intel on Jake's operations. That means we should start with his known associates. The more we know, the better our chances of outsmarting him." The newcomer leaned forward, intrigued. "I might have some contacts who could help. People who know Jake's style and might share what they know. But we need to tread carefully. I can't guarantee their loyalty." "Loyalty seems to be a rare commodity in this situation," Ellie stated, a tight smile curling on her lips. "But we have to start somewhere." As they outlined a plan, Ellie felt invigorated, each decision solidifying her sense of purpose. She began to piece together fragments from her past, how the patterns of manipulation had played out with Jake. This time, she would be the one pulling the strings, not the marionette swaying to his tune. Ruth provided insights, recounting what she knew about Jake's networks and the ways he typically operated. Each morsel of information fortified Ellie's determination, igniting a fire she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Yet, as they made preparations, a persistent anxiety coiled around her mind, a whisper suggesting that perhaps she was underestimating Jake's intelligence and cunning. She had felt the electricity of potential in their initial meeting, now that potential transformed into a stubborn uncertainty, gnawing at her bravado. How quickly she could slip back into fear. Would her past bring her under Jake's control once more? Next, we need to prepare for how he'll react, the newcomer proposed, jolting Ellie from her spiraling thoughts. What if he suspects you're onto him? Then we'll have to work faster, Ellie replied, forcing confidence into her voice even as her stomach twisted at the implications. We must create a scenario that distracts him. I can engage him and lead him away from the real investigation. The group exchanged glances, the weight of her words trading the heady thrill of pursuit for the dull ache of impending consequences. That's risky, Ruth interjected, her voice mild but edged with concern. If he's even the slightest bit alert, you might end up drawing his attention onto yourself. Isn't that the point? Ellie shot back, unabashed. The bluster spilled forth in defiance of her internal fears. I want him to think I'm still reeling from everything he did. Underestimating me might be his downfall. The tension thickened, underscoring the urgency of their situation. As the weight of her words settled over them, Ellie felt not only the thrill of agency but also the shadow of fear creeping back. Could she pull off the deception? Was it wise to thrust herself directly into the lioness den? Ellie leaned back, closing her eyes briefly as she attempted to balance resolve with caution. An inner voice murmured its objections, but she stood firm. The stakes were undeniable, and with them, the potential for her own transformation. Tomorrow, we move, she finally declared, a newfound certainty coloring her intentions. We'll reach out to those contacts. We'll set the trap, and I'll be ready to face him. As their plans took shape, a different kind of tension ignited in Ellie's gut, a mixture of fear and exhilaration that promised danger but also freedom. The battlefield awaited, and within it, she felt the faintest pang of hope. Yet, flickering in the periphery of her resolve was that insidious doubt. With each step toward uncovering the truth, she couldn't shake the eerie sensation that Jake was always 2 steps ahead, watching, waiting. This was not just about facing him, it was about confronting the darkness her past brought with it and the unresolved pieces she had yet to reclaim. Are you ready for this? Ruth whispered, her eyes betraying layers of anxiety. Ellie met Ruth's gaze, a blend of uncertainty and fierce determination in her heart. Ready or not, here I come, Ellie replied, and as she spoke those words, she felt the subtle yet undeniable shift in her psyche, the fragile line between fear and courage a little less daunting than before. What she didn't know was that tomorrow would bring them to the precipice of danger. What awaited beyond it was a revelation that would challenge everything she thought she knew about herself, and about Jake. As dawn broke, Ellie found herself standing at the precipice of her resolve, the remnants of sleep still clinging to her like a second skin. The air was thick with the scent of impending rain, a symbol of the brewing storm in her life. Today was the day she had set in motion, a day that could solidify her strength or unravel her tenuous grip on control. She dressed deliberately, each piece of clothing a layer of armor. The soft fabric of her sweater was warm against her skin, almost a cocoon against the chill of uncertainty that danced through her veins. As she gazed into the mirror, prepping her expression, she noticed the shadows under her eyes. They mirrored the struggles and late-night strategizing, but today she would use that weariness to fuel her focus. The plan had been crafted meticulously over the past days, but still, her heart raced with the fear of missteps. She could almost hear Ruth's voice replaying in her ear, a stark reminder of the complexities they hadn't fully accounted for. Anticipating Jake's moves had become a puzzle that consumed her thoughts. Was she truly ready to navigate this murky territory, where the stakes weren't just her own safety, but the chain reaction of falling dominoes that could ensue from one wrong move? Ellie grabbed her phone, scrolling through contacts to reach the few allies she had hoped would stand beside her. Each call filled her with dread, the faintest tremor in her hands reminding her that trust was an illusion. It felt painfully delicate, like glass slipping through her fingers. After 3 attempts, she secured a meeting with one of Jake's former associates, someone who might have the insight she desperately needed. "James will meet you at the usual spot," Ellie heard herself say, her voice unexpectedly steady as she hung up. The confidence resurfaced in waves, a slow rush as her resolve fortified once more. The next few hours felt both agonizingly slow and hurriedly chaotic. She ran through possible scenarios in her mind, visualizing her approach and the words she would say. With every moment, she rehearsed not just her role in this confrontation with James, but what would come after confronting Jake himself. As she made her way to the meeting place, each step felt heavier and resonated with doubt. Adrenaline pushed her forward, but a chorus of negative possibilities threatened to drown her in anxiety. What if Jake found out about her intentions? What if she misread James, and he betrayed her instead of offering help? It was a labyrinth of potential failures. Yet, she understood that this journey demanded both courage and vulnerability, 2 concepts she was only beginning to grasp. Ellie arrived at the small cafe nestled in the corner of a bustling street, its industrial chic decor contrasting sharply with the flutter of her heart. To distract herself, she ordered a coffee, pretending to care for the taste while her focus remained split between the door and the ticking clock on the wall. When James finally walked in, he commanded a presence that was immediate and unsettling. Casual clothes disguised a mind that seemed to revolve around survival, a man who knew how to navigate the tumultuous waters Ellie was about to plunge into. He scanned the room, his gaze landing on her with an unsettling intensity. "Let us talk," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. This wasn't a socially laden introduction, it was business, and the weight of their circumstances hung between them like an unlit fuse ready to ignite. "Jake," she began, forcing the name out with purpose, "I need to know what you can tell me. His next move, anything that can help me." The way James scrutinized her perceptibly shifted the atmosphere, making the weight of secrets palpable. "He's unpredictable," he replied, an edge to his tone. "Underestimating him could cost you more than you realize." Ellie met his gaze with fierce determination, grounding herself in that moment. "I'm prepared for whatever it takes," she insisted, feeling the fire leap inside her. She was right here, reclaiming what Jake had taken one step at a time. The words "prepared and whatever it takes" felt foreign yet empowering, surfacing a determination she hadn't known resided within. As their conversation unfolded, layers began to peel away, fragments of Jake's tactics, possibilities of connections, and a single, critical thread that tied everything together burst into clarity. They were on the surface of something monumental. Yet all the while, an unexpected loyalty from James unsettled her. Could he truly be trusted? Or was this simply another layer in Jake's intricate web? With the clock ticking beyond their palette of conversation, and as she absorbed the insights he offered, her mind raced. The revelations were promising yet tinged with a looming threat. If Jake caught on to her plans now, it wouldn't just be an embrace of the past but a full-blown confrontation that could threaten her very essence. As James leaned closer, whispering a name she'd never expected to hear, the true weight of her reality shifted beneath her. The resolve she had built began to crack, for this new twist spun a fresh thread into the existing turmoil of the chase. And with the truth unraveling, Ellie grasped the unsettling realization that Jake wasn't merely a target, he'd taken on the shape of a foe of significant depth, one who was always watching. Just then, the cafe door swung open, and the unmistakable figure of a familiar face caught her eye. What did it mean now that he was here? A new confrontation loomed just beyond the veil of her temporarily constructed safety, and Ellie suddenly felt the ground shift beneath her once again. Ellie stood at the edge of a precipice, heart racing as she faced the uncertainties that swirled around her. She had navigated the complexities of intrigue, maneuvered through webs of deception, and unearthed truths that had transformed her from a timid girl into an empowered young woman. Today was the culmination of everything. She was ready to confront Jake and reclaim her narrative. The swirling emotions of anticipation and trepidation uncoiled as she readied herself for the confrontation. James, the enigmatic figure she had met earlier, had dropped a bombshell. Jake was more interconnected in the community's secrets than she could have imagined. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Ellie felt a sharpened resolve coursing through her veins. The stakes had escalated, but so had her strength. "Let us do this," she whispered quietly to herself, steeling her nerves. No longer was she a girl lingering on the sidelines, she had actively pursued the truth and emerged as an agent of change within her life and the lives of others. As she made her way to the planned rendezvous with Jake, the weather threatened to match her inner tumult. Dark clouds loomed above, and the air crackled with an unsettling electricity. But Ellie welcomed it. Storms brought cleansing and opportunity for rebirth. Upon arriving at the location, a vacant lot where the echoes of past deteriorations lingered, she spotted Jake leaning against a van, a nonchalant smirk plastered across his face. The familiar pang of fear washed over her, but this time, it served as a catalyst rather than a deterrent. She had come too far to turn back now. "Ellie," he greeted, amusement glinting in his eyes. "You're braver than I gave you credit for. But bravery without wisdom. That's a recipe for disaster." "I didn't come here for your judgments," she shot back, a newfound assertiveness in her voice, her posture unyielding. "I'm here to set the record straight." He smirked, the expression dripping with condescension. "Oh? And what makes you think I'm interested in the truth?" The silence stretched taut, but Ellie seized the moment to confront him head-on. "Because the truth is more powerful than your lies, and it's about time someone held you accountable for all the pain you've caused. Our community deserves the chance to heal." Jake's playful demeanor wavered as the threat in her words hung in the air. "You are not out of your league, but you're certainly overestimating your role in this," he warned, stepping forward, a calculated move designed to intimidate. Ellie squared her shoulders, refusing to back down. "Maybe you should remember how fragile your empire really is. Your secrets won't stay hidden forever." The stark tension between them intensified, a palpable friction vibrating in the space. Each of Jake's comments dripped disdain, but Ellie refused to let herself crumble under the weight of it. Instead, she drew upon the power of her previous conversations, the lessons learned, the connections forged, and the determination ignited inside her. "You think you can control everything, Jake," Ellie continued, her voice resolute, "but manipulation is a facade. No one remains untouchable forever." The challenge was laid bare. She might be standing alone, yet Ellie felt unfurling strength, bolstered by the allies who believed in her quest for justice. Beneath Jake's bravado, Ellie could sense the cracks beginning to form in his carefully constructed defense. His confidence wavered, just a fraction, but it was enough for her to notice. "Here's the deal, Ellie," Jake countered, shifting to regain the upper hand. "You might have pieced together a story, but stories can be rewritten, especially by the right hands. Don't think for a second that your bravado can protect you when push comes to shove." But Ellie had crossed a threshold. The clarity she had gained over these tumultuous weeks, coupled with the realization of her worth, was inviolable. This was her moment of transformation, not the scared girl she had been, but a young woman ready to face the storms. "Maybe," she replied coolly, matching his stare. "But you don't get to rewrite my truth. Not anymore. It's my story to tell, and its repercussions extend far beyond you." Jake's probing glare shifted, suddenly unsteady. Ellie sensed her momentum growing, like the rising tide beneath them. Her unwavering strength and conviction pushed against the echoes of doubt that had once haunted her. For the first time, she felt solid confidence surge. She was rising to meet the confrontation, no longer defined solely by Jake's narrative. Just then, the air shifted as footsteps approached from behind her. James arrived, flanking Ellie with an air of unspoken backup. "You wanted truth, right?" he interjected, his tone challenging. "Let us lay it all out on the table." As Jake turned to assess the sudden change in dynamics, Ellie caught an unexpected flicker of fear cross his face. The arrival of support, someone who could potentially unravel his machinations, served as a catalyst, forcing him to recalibrate his next steps. Who's this? Jake scoffed, attempting to regain his composure. Just someone who understands that power shifts once the truth is unveiled. You're not the only player in this game, Jake, James said, stepping forward to meet Ellie's shoulder with solidarity. The combination of Ellie's fierce resolve complemented by the presence of James kicked the confrontation into a higher realm. The realization swept over Ellie like a warm wave. She had clawed her way to this pivotal moment through sheer determination and personal growth. She was not merely an observer, she was a force of nature, demanding change. In that instant, she understood her role. She didn't solely seek to confront Jake, she aimed to instigate a ripple effect of liberation for those trapped by the shadows of fear woven into the community's fabric. I won't let you manipulate anyone anymore, Ellie declared, her voice unwavering as her courage strengthened. Every word poured from her engaged essence, demonstrating the magnitude of her transformation from isolation to established confidence, from panic to engagement. Suddenly, the crowd of gathered allies surged around them, creating a shared atmosphere of determination, support, and resolve. Every relationship forged along the path had culminated at this moment. Facing Jake was the embodiment of claiming her psychological space in the larger narrative. As she and James stood side by side, rallying together against Jake's intimidation, Ellie felt a powerful wave of empowerment wash over her. Confidence surged through her as the specter of uncertainty melted into resolute purpose. The chorus of unwavering voices held true power, one she had finally recognized as her own. This confrontation marked not the end, but a potent beginning. Ellie had emerged from the chrysalis of fear, reshaping her true self into a dynamic force of competence and leadership. And in that clarity, she saw future reflections of her growth on the horizon, a life no longer held captive by doubt. Today she had conquered not just Jake's intimidation, but the lingering self-doubt that had shackled her spirit. She breathed deeply, ready to immerse herself in the conflict ahead, all for the truth, justice, and an unwavering commitment to reclaiming her narrative. Each step forward was another reaffirmation of her resilience. She was a beacon of unwavering courage within the storm, and now the world stood ready to witness her triumph. If you found Ellie's journey inspiring, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories that empower and uplift. Leave a like now to support the channel. Every click fuels our mission. Comment your reactions and theories about Ellie's growth and the future she's about to embrace. Your thoughts matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Together, we can amplify stories of personal overcoming.